Hello and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler and I am back from vacation. That's why I've had a few days off here. And back from vacation, and now I'm greeted to the September release of Fabric slash Power BI. Before I left on vacation, I was actually on October version. That was short-lived, as we all know. So the September version of Fabric. And I'm going to go through. I don't usually cover the Fabric stuff, but I thought this one was interesting. In that you go through this September update, right? And you see Power BI is just an afterthought. Number one, they barely cover it at all. It's got its own page, but they don't really cover it here. They give it like a one paragraph blip. So it's truly a complete afterthought. But you go through this, and these are so we got core updates, One Lake, data warehouse, data engineering, data science, real time intelligence. I mean, the list goes on for forever. Data factory, and I'm sure that there's a lot of people that would look at this and be like, "Oh my Lord, Microsoft's just killing it, knocking it out of the park with all this new development." And I do realize that they're trying to do a big splash for FabricCon Europe, and all of that sort of stuff. But when I take a look at this, and again, a ton of it is all public preview or private preview. It's beta code, right? It's barely out there. When I take a look at this, and I think, man, Fabric's been out for a year and a half, right? And in 1 month you get an update like this where it's all very basic stuff, right? Like nested CTEs, right? Or hey, I can migrate my database, or I can now have spaces in my table names, right? If you think, and I look at this and I'm just like, I knew that, and I've covered that Fabric was barely a product when it was announced and released, and even a year later. But now, even a year and a half later, I mean, it's barely an MVP, right? A minimal viable product. Fabric is. I mean, when you're doing this amount of development and releasing just basic functionality, what I would consider basic functionality, and even that basic functionality is still in preview. It's beta code, right? I mean, it's barely a product. It seems like to me. Otherwise, you wouldn't have releases like this that were just ridiculously long and that nobody cares about, right? I mean, and you think about this. This is the other thing I think about. I think Fabric and Power BI's user base, right? And you think about how many users Power BI has, maybe 50 million worldwide, even if it's 500 million worldwide, right? Excel has like 1.5 billion users worldwide, right? And you think, well, why aren't people going from Excel to Power BI? Well, because Excel meets all of their needs, right? Excel does everything they need it to do, right? And that they need to do their jobs. And so they're not going to migrate away from Excel and use Power BI or something different because Excel meets all of the needs that they have, right? And I think of that the same way in terms of Power BI and Fabric, right? Let's say you have 50 million Power BI users. How many of those users even care one bit about Fabric, right? Maybe 20% of those users, I would say, maybe, right? Power BI does everything they need it to do. They don't need to use anything that's in Fabric because it's too much for them. They don't need to go learn that stuff because they everything they need Power BI can do for them. So all of these features in this development effort to me is kind of a waste in terms of you're catering to a smaller and smaller and smaller, tinier and tinier user base, and ignoring, right, the stuff that everybody uses, right, the Excel and the Power BI and everything else. And I don't think any amount of development effort that you're ever going to do with Fabric is going to get you to 1.5 billion users of Fabric. I really don't. Um, but I guess we'll have to see about that. All right, so on to the actual Power BI desktop, and of course, yeah, yes, it is absolutely disappointing. Um, I mean, the big announcement is dark mode, which we kind of got completely ruined and spoiled when they sort of released the October update, which had dark mode in it. And the interesting thing to me that was when I loaded up that October version for the first time, it was like, "Hey, dark mode's here," and it allowed you to like set it right, immediately, right from like a splash screen that appeared. But this time when I loaded up Power BI Desktop, it didn't. It actually was like crowing about visual calculations, which were still in preview, and didn't even mention dark mode at all. So I guess they kind of screwed up the whole, you know, launch of the second most requested feature of Power BI, I guess. Um, so the other things in here, again, lots of preview updates for visual level calculations and all that. That's been in preview for forever. Um, this one is interesting. The multiple orgs. Warren Dean mentioned this one. Multiple org apps per workspace. Again, still in preview. That's been, requested for a long time. And I guess it's going to be better than audiences on that. You have to have a Fabric I think a Fabric is a trial. Where is it? Multiple orgs, Fabric capacity or trial. Additional licenses capacity will be supported in the future. So hopefully Pro will come along at some point and be supported there. Let's see. I mean, really, that's about it. I mean, to me, actually, the biggest announcement is this KPI by PowerViz. If you guys haven't, I got to play with this before it was ever an app source. I need to make a video on it. If you guys haven't played with this visual, you need to go out to app source and install this visual and play around with it. It is freaking amazing what you can do with this. It's like you'll just be amazed by what you can do with this visual. It blows the doors off of anything, any out of the box visual that Power BI has. I mean, just absolutely blows the absolute doors off of it in terms of its ability, its functionality, features, etc. It's amazing. And I need to do a video on it because it is one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time. To me, that's like the biggest announcement coming out of all of this versus anything else that's included in here. But yeah, very small, very disappointing feature. Again, we kind of covered this before, but it's still the same as far as dark mode. They did fix a few things, but you got to go to options, settings, options, lots of mouse and click text there. Report settings, down here in the personalizations where you choose your theme, dark mode, light mode, system default. There was another option here, it was called legacy, I believe. They got rid of that. They still didn't get rid of the fact that you still have to you don't get to see it before you choose it. So if you activate it like this, and you can see on my face, it does absolutely zero because of the canvas is all white. So it really doesn't do much as far as reducing eye strain, in my opinion. But if you go back, if you don't like it, you have to click tax city, go back and set it back to the way it was, right? There's no way to preview it or anything like that before you actually do it. So still disappointing. They did fix the bug with the advanced filter that I covered in my previous video. They did fix that. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same as what I covered already, and they kind of blew the launch of it. Not my fault, their fault. So yeah, that's the September update. I've got a lot of things now. I'm back from vacation. I'll be picking back up where I left with the Patreon and the book. I've got the second detailed draft of the outline, or basically the second version of the detailed outline. Pretty much ready to go. Might release that later tonight or early tomorrow. I'm gonna get the schedule created. So, yep. So back from vacation and ready to get going again, making videos and writing books and all that. So that's all I had for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.